Hey guys, Hector here, and today I'm going to rank every episode of Johnny Test Season 1 from worst to best. I know this may be one of the most infamous shows out there, but I think this show is really good. One of the best shows in my opinion. Well, at least Season 1. And I'm not sure anyone would disagree that Season 1 is good. I know many would disagree that Season 1 is one of the best shows of all time, but whatever. Let's just get started with the ranking. Number 26, we have Johnny Test Party Monster. This episode is full of gross out. I just really don't like how gross everything is, and it's just really boring. It's not really a bad episode, and I do like the invention Susan and Mary use, which is the theming of a party. But otherwise, I don't like the episode that much. Number 25, we have Sonic Johnny. I think this episode is it's the first good episode of the season, which shows how good I think season 1 of Johnny Test is. However, there's one major problem that puts this episode really low. I know that it may have high stakes, but I just think the episode is really disturbing. Johnny and Dookie test a Mach 9 and they go to 10 years into the future, and both futures are pretty bad. I mean, the first future they went to was really post-apocalyptic, and then they're hunted by many people. This was a really disturbing episode in my opinion, which puts this episode really low. And yeah, Susan and Mary are kind of a jerk. They're kind of jerks in this episode. They really planned that Johnny tests the Mach 9 because of how careless he can be. Number 24 is Johnny and the Ice Pigs. I do like the ending where the people in history come together to save Johnny, to save the Ice Pigs. I mean, yeah, the Ice Pigs from losing another game. But otherwise, the episode is just kind of boring. It's just not that good compared to the rest. I also have a similar problem with Johnny Impossible. I mean, I guess I do like the baseball stuff in this episode, but otherwise, I just don't think it's as good as the rest of the season. Number 22 is Johnny Gets Mooned. Once again, I just don't think this episode is as good as the rest of the season. I mean, sure, there's this space gimmick, but that's all. There are a lot of problems in with these season 1 episodes from 24th place to 21st. Yeah, I think Deep Sea Johnny has a very similar problem to the previous episodes I mentioned. It's just kind of boring compared to the rest. Number 20, we have Johnny's Super Smarty Pants. I really like how the pants just is so smart that it has a mind of its own, even though Johnny planned for it to make him smarter, but I just don't think the episode is the best one out there, because I really didn't like the first part where Johnny was so dumb that he cannot even spell go correctly. Number 19, we have Johnny's Extreme Game Controller. I do like the idea of controlling someone's minds with a controller, but this is but the school scene kind of rehashes doesn't rehash anything. It just has similar vibes to Johnny and the Turbo Action Backpack. Number 18 is Johnny X. I really think this episode isn't that good. I mean, sure, it does have a saga of its own, but I just think the main antagonist of this episode is which is Gil in monkey form. which Susan and Mary just fed him with some gum. That's not really threatening and not something I would expect in a superhero episode. But this is part of the pilot episode, so it is part of the first episode of the series, though not the first one. But this is no excuse. I still think it's a good episode, but just not as good as its sister episode. Not even close. We'll get to it soon. Number 17 is Johnny and the Attack of the Monster Truck. I really think the episode has a smart way to defeat Roadburn. Roadburn doesn't actually get defeated, he just gets a girlfriend. But otherwise, I think the episode is just typical for a good Johnny Test episode. I could say the same thing for the 16th place spot, Johnny and the Amazing Turbo Action Backpack. Yeah, I mentioned this episode in my thoughts about Johnny and Johnny's Smarty Pants or something. I don't remember. But anyways, Johnny and the Amazing Turbo Action Backpack was pretty fun, but it's just not as fun as the rest. Remember when I said that Johnny X didn't have that much of a threat of a villain in that episode? They fixed that problem, kinda, in the 15th place spot. The Return of Johnny X. I think the episode is slightly better than its predecessor, Johnny X, because I think the villain is really threatening despite being small. But I really like how the raptor is actually kind of treated like a dog or a pet. And that's how they solve the problem. Now, here comes the really good stuff. We're starting it with Johnny Hollywood. This is where episodes get really good. From 14th onwards, the episodes, I really love them. It's not as good as the other 13 episodes I'm gonna talk about, but I think the concept of an ultra reality helmet where you can place your CDs in was a pretty good one. Honestly, the only problem I have with it, well, it's a big problem. The monkey is just called Monkey and just feels like they didn't even bother giving a name, making the movie feel kind of a weird choice. Still, what a creative plot. Number 13 is Take Your Johnny to Work Day. I really like the missile scene. I really like the exploration, the lab, and all that stuff. Johnny is jealous that only the daughters can go to work day and not the sons. I really thought this episode was going to be something else, but this one is actually pretty good. And that's opposite of what I thought this plot would be from the title of this episode. Number 12 is The Dog Days of Johnny. I think the plot of making Dookie Susan and Mary's servant was good, and I really like that Johnny thought that he was just not his friend anymore, but turns out that they were possessed, and I really like it when he thinks that his sisters are evil. Number 11, we have Johnny and the Mega Roboticals. Bringing inanimate toys to life is a pretty cool concept. That's all I have to say. Well, except for, I think it has good action scenes. So, it lands a spot this high. Number 10 is Johnny's House of Horrors. This episode is acclaimed by many people who like Johnny Test season 1. And I can see why, because Johnny really wants to make Hugh's make his house a dream house for Hugh, but it turns out that the book he read was actually the nightmares. I also like the quicksand thing, how it reveals a basement and how they keep it. Also, there's a lot of horror in this episode and it's pretty good. I just really think the horror was really done well. Number 9 is Lil Johnny. I really like the concept of Johnny shrinking into a really small size that he becomes part of another universe. He meets a counterpart of himself and a world counterpart of his own world. This was a really cool concept and it showed, but the fact that since he's there in other Johnny's world, there became thunderclouds and then the orange Johnny got hated. So that's a pretty good episode. And the fact that he left thanks to Susan and Mary's inventions, the other Susan and Mary's inventions, that was a pretty good way to solve the conflict. I think it has been done many episodes, but I think it was good. It was a good way. It has always been a good way. Even in my second least favorite episode, Sonic Johnny. Number 8 is Johnny's Pink Plague. This episode was kinda hated by many and considered the worst episode of season 1, but I don't think it's that bad. I actually think it's a really good episode. I really like the zit invention where Susan and Mary try to neutralize it, but Johnny and Dookie tested on people too early, making their zits go away at first, but it just worsened it. And then with with a little bit of neutralizer, Johnny, Dookie, Susan, and Mary were able to bring the teens back to having no pimples anymore. And then there's Zitzilla. This one's really good action. Well, except for the fact that Zitzilla is really pathetic. It gets defeated in a matter of seconds. Number 7 is Johnny's Big Snow Job. I really think this plot is creative. The concept of Johnny wanting a snow day, well, I think I can see why the Loud House would borrow this plot, kinda. But honestly, I think Johnny Test did better because there's just one small snowstorm and then small pieces of snow, and then it becomes a snowstorm already. When he does it too much, it becomes quarantine. And I really like the return of the Mole King and the Mole People, and I'm gonna talk about that in a later episode. I'm gonna talk about. Anyways, Johnny's Big Snow Job is a creative plot, and I really like how the Mole People return and the problem is solved. Number 6 is Johnny vs. Bling Bling Boy. I really like the concept of Bling Bling Island, of course, because he's evil and he wants to turn everything into gold. Bling Bling wants to turn everything into gold. Number 5, we have Johnny's Turbo Time Rewinder. I think the episode has a pretty creative concept similar to Deja Vu from Fairly Odd Parents, but I think this episode, once again, did it better. Because there's even a pause button. Okay, see you next video for ranking next other episodes.